Hi folks, Six Slices here. About 2 years ago, Paddy Potato Peelers did an unboxing of this particular knife here, which I'd lent him for the purpose. And I really wanted him to have a go at cutting with it, but he was a bit reluctant to because he was worried he'd do some damage to such an expensive knife. And he also said in there, these are not hard use knives, not for everyday use. And I thought, I watched that video, I just watched that video again just the other day, and I thought, actually no, this one was actually in my pocket at the time because it was my everyday carry knife in my everyday carry rotation. Now, I have a lot of knives in my everyday carry rotation, so you could say in 2 years it's maybe not had that much use. But what I tend to do, because we're in lockdown, is to carry a lock knife. We've been in lockdown for the last 2 years. I've tended to carry a lock knife a lot around the house, and there are a relatively small number of knives that I carry as in my EDC rotation. I mean, I have 300 knives or something like that in total, but of the lock knives I have a relatively small number, and they are all carried because I find them particularly good and useful. So I've got two Sabenzas, 231s. This is the smaller one, which is roughly the same size as the small Hizen from Rockstead, and I have a large 31, which is roughly the same size as the larger Higo. So I carry those. I have a couple of Medfords. Medfords being Medfords. The small one is as large as the large Rockstead, and the larger one, my own belay, is just plain huge. I like carrying these knives, but the on belay is really a wee bit heavy as a genuinely everyday carry knife. This is a more practical. The Slim Midi Marauder is a more practical user knife, and it's also very pretty with its tiger stripes and its tanto blade and all of that nonsense. And the other one that I've been carrying, perhaps not so long, I've only had this one a year or so, is the Falkneven TK3, which is a really nice lockback. The thing I quite like about the Sabenzas is that they're both left-handed, which means I actually get the proper frame lock experience, which I don't really get with these two. But anyway, the point I was trying to make was these I've now had for 2.5 years and 2 years. I use them regularly. I don't spare them. I don't nanny them or anything. They get actually used because they're really nice knives to use. They're really good, strong cutters. I just show you something. I mean, these knives are all sharp. They've all got sharp mirror edges, but what I was going to say was, let's say the Medford, perfectly sharp knife, but let's say I want to cut a little bit of plastic like this drug packet. If I press, we've just dented the plastic and we've not really cut it. If I use one of these, and I put quite a lot of pressure onto that, and I hope you notice, but if I put this on, just cut straight through. And I don't know that that's just sharpness. I don't think it is. I think it's also to do with the geometry, and I don't think it's also to do with the hardness of the blade. It's almost like a die cutter. You know, when you see sort of in a printing works or something where they die cut through material and it just slices straight through. I think these are very much like that, and as a result, I think they're great. But what I was going to say is and I'm rubbish at this behind the camera, but I'm going to attempt to do a bit of paper cutting for you. Right, let's see if I can do this behind a camera. I'm rubbish at doing it even without a camera, but let's try it. Now, this is a knife that is 2 years old and I've never sharpened it, but I use it very regularly. And it is still absolutely razor sharp. It's not necessarily that these knives were so sharp out of the box. I've had sharp knives out of a box, but what I've never had is ones that have lasted this well 2 years on without ever sharpening. They get a light strop using the Rockstead strop, which is denim with metal polish on it. So it's a very fine strop, not a hard aggressive polish. In terms of sort of general wear and tear, this one's picked up a couple of little chips. I think the coating is supposed to be DLC on both of them, but this one is on duralinium and this one is on titanium. One is not more used than the other, but there are 1 or 2 little wear marks on the titanium. There's a tiny little mark there on that duralinium, and I think there's another similar mark. Yes, just there on this one. The clips, of course, these metal steel clips, again they're DLC coated, 420 HC steel. It's not special like the Medford milled titanium sort of thing, or even the bent titanium of the Sebenza, but honestly these just work. So I cannot criticize these knives for the plain clips, but yeah, I mean, the point I was just trying to make was this one, the ZDP 189, which is 67 Rockwell, there are 2 very tiny chips in the edge, in that belly there, and I don't think you'll be able to see them. If you can, you've got very good eyesight. I can't see them now. I have to look with a magnifying glass, and I can see there's 2 very tiny chips, and there's also some very tiny scratches. Mostly, I think this one has this, people call it a secondary bevel. There is this line along here. Now, people call it a secondary bevel. Rockstead call it a shinogi line. I would call this a shinogi line. On a sword, that would be more like a shinogi line. But these are polished, sharpened to a 0 edge. But this does have this sort of change in the bevel line just here. And as a result, it tends to get a couple of scratches around that. There's a couple here. I mean, we're talking very fine, and you probably wouldn't notice on any other knife it wasn't just as sharp as this. In fact, I'm struggling to see them at all, and I've got pretty good lighting here. But that's where it can pick up a scratch. This one, because it just doesn't have that line, tends not to get them. What I have noticed with this one though is, and this you might be able to see on the camera, is that there are a couple of reflective spots on the edge. Now that means that bit of edge is dull, and no matter how much I strop, those don't seem to go away. But despite that, and here we go again, see if I can do this with another one. This knife is, I'd say this one is a mere 63 Rockwell, but it's older, and just listen to that. Now, that's the bit where it's slightly dull, but it's still even if those are dull spots, it's still cutting beautifully. Now, eventually, there will come a time when I'll have to send these back to Rockstead to be repolished and resharpened. But I don't think the time has come yet. We're 2 years in. I can see it being another 2 years or more before I send them off, but they're still getting regular use. So I actually rate these knives as regular use knives. They have a way of cutting that is just very, very powerful. They're comfortable in the hand, they're lovely to carry, they're beautiful to look at, and so they make it into my pockets more often than almost any other knife. I keep telling myself that the Sebenza is one of the best work knives ever, but I have to say, in comparison, it just looks dull. My TK3 I really like, and I kind of feel more like I can get away with carrying that a little bit more. And it's got desert ironwood, which I love, and this beautiful Sanmai blade and whatever. So this one does give them a good run for their money. I quite like the Medford, but I think this is too aggressive to carry in the UK without the risk of running into trouble. But I do quite like to carry it around the house. And there is an awesome brutality about the on belay, which makes it attractive to want to use. And you can see from the state of this handle and all the snail trails. I mean, granted, I've had this knife a few years as well, but it is, you know, it is well used. Used and abused. I mean, my wife the other day said she was planting a tree, and she said, did I have a big knife? And did I have a knife she could use that I didn't mind if it got covered in mud and dirt? And I immediately, without hesitation, handed her my Medford on belay, and she took it out into the garden, and when it came back, it was full of mud and dirt. I ran it under the tap, gave it a wee scrub with a dish brush, give it a quick blow dry with a hairdryer. And you know, here it is. It's never had the best action, but it's just a great chunk of a thing. So, you know, these are the knives that I carry most, but it's actually these three here that are, you know, absolutely my most carried knives over the last couple of years. And they these Rocksteads, much as they might not look like they're everyday carry knives, hard use knives, whatever you want to call them, they've given hard use and they've survived it very, very well. And I will continue to use them. And if I one day manage to break a tip off or put a big chip in it or whatever, I'll send it back to Rockstead and ask them to repolish and resharpen. And I hope I don't do any major damage. But in the meantime, love these knives. Anyway, so if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. Thank you very much. Bye.